Have you ever thought about buying a profitable startup company instead of wasting years of time trying to build one yourself? Well, there's a new marketplace on the scene and it's called Microacquire. In this video, I'm going to give you a brief review about Microacquire, what my initial thoughts are, what my concerns are, and if this video does get some traction, I'll go ahead and do a full review where I go through the entire process of buying and selling a startup on Microacquire. So let's go ahead and dig into my Microacquire review and essentially my first impressions by taking a look at what their marketplace is. I've signed up, I've created an account, and I've tested out, and I've taken a look at some of the businesses on there to see what is going on. Now, for those of you who haven't heard of Microacquire, it essentially is a marketplace for startups to find buyers. So once a startup company has made profit, they're looking to sell their business, they log into Microacquire and they're able to find buyers anonymously and potentially sell to them. And that's one of the things that I think is a little bit first glance. Now, at some point, you're going to need to know who you're selling to, but I guess they utilize their platform to make sure it's anonymous. And there's always this weird point when you're selling your business. You only want to reveal more information about your business to trusted and vetted buyers. And Microacquire has a few ways of getting over this. One of these ways is making a premium listing. So essentially they only allow premium buyers to see their premium listings, which is a $300 a year sort of subscription. So if you don't have this premium thing, you're only going to get access to certain listings. And I believe this is their attempt to prevent everyone from seeing those businesses or to make them a little bit more exclusive for serious buyers. But my first kind of thoughts on this whole Microacquire is it doesn't seem any different than Flippa or something like Biz Buy Sell, where essentially somebody's going in there, they're able to connect their sales data. They do have some integrations with Stripe that I see. But one of the big issues is with all of these marketplaces, there is no real vetting process. Sure, they're going to do some verification to make sure your email's confirmed, that maybe your identity matches up. But again, actually going through and vetting the profit is one thing, but checking and verifying the expenses is another thing. So let's run through a few examples that a lot of people on Flippa use to scam people, and that can be potentially used on this marketplace as well. Again, I think it's just not their priority to spend a lot of time vetting these businesses, and they're putting that weight onto the potential buyer. So if you are looking at a business, you need to make sure you're asking the right questions and you're digging deep into these businesses, where other curated marketplaces are spending 4 to 6 weeks investigating the seller, the buyer, checking all the financial data, verifying expenses, and so on. So none of that is really happening on Microacquire, and that's kind of why it's my concern for potential buyers to go there. And I do think it's going to attract certain buyers and sellers, and overall, it'll be great for the community. Microacquire has already raised around $5 million in seed funding, so it's going to be interesting to see how they continue developing, and I'm sure this is kind of their first beta. Maybe they'll be adding on some of these features that I was discussing about vetting the businesses and also vetting the buyers, because when you're selling a startup company, there's certain things you just don't want to share with a buyer that doesn't have $1 million to buy your business. If they only have 100 grand in the bank account or access to 100 grand in capital, there's no way I want to reveal a lot of that information or details to that buyer unless they have that capital. So that's kind of one of the things that I see as an issue with Microacquire at first glance. So let's talk about the good things. It does seem like they have a really clean interface. It's simple, minimalistic. It's easy to find businesses. They have a lot of sorting options as well, which makes it easy if you're looking for something in particular. You can put in the price, the type of business. I would say they are kind of leaning towards the software as a service businesses, but they have a lot of other types of businesses on there. E-commerce, crypto, Shopify. So they do have a good combination of businesses there. And I think it's a great opportunity for people to kind of check it out for yourself and see if it's a good fit. But again, make sure you're spending that extra time to really dig into the financial data to make sure that these businesses are legit. As it is, from my understanding, there's not a huge verification process that goes into checking the financial data. I do think there is some verification because it is linking to certain payment processors to make sure that the income is actually accurate. But as that example of what I've seen on Flippa and other sites where you can kind of say whatever you want, the problem is that even if the profit is verified like through a Stripe connection or Stripe API, there's no way for them to verify my expense. So let's take a look at one common example or one common scam that I've seen on Flippa and some of these similar type platforms. Essentially is you can verify the profit and the revenue that's coming in, but it's really hard for you to verify the expenses. So let's say you have two ad accounts and you've earned $20,000 in revenue, but you only spent $10,000 on one ad account, which is what you're displaying. So you're displaying a $10,000 profit, but what people don't know is you have a second ad account where you were running ads, and that ad account, you spent another $15,000. So you actually lost $5,000 in the overall monthly, but mostly people are just inflating their profit and their expenses. So they'll have certain expenses that they just won't include. Maybe it's an employee that's doing stuff. Maybe it's some type of refunds that they're not including in there. So make sure you're double checking all of this, making sure you're going through the financial data very carefully, because you could end up buying a lemon or buying a business that's not necessarily generating as much profit every month as they're saying. One other thing to notice that I thought was pretty interesting is Microacquire has teamed up with Capchase, which is essentially a platform for lending you money. So if you're looking at buying one of these premium listings, you do have the opportunity to finance it. So this could potentially reduce your risk, but I haven't really looked into Capchase too much, but it looks like they fund up to $10 million, get a term sheet in 24 hours, and the repayment period is around 2.5 years. So it seems like a pretty interesting way to buy an online business with somebody else's capital. But again, whenever you're taking money, you really need to be extra precautious there, because if the business goes down, you're still going to be liable, most likely, for paying out whatever amount of capital you took within a certain period of time, or you're going to have to pay interest on that, or potentially even have some sort of assets leveraged to this. And this looks interesting. It does look like you're able to get fairly quick lending, which has always been one of the biggest issues with buying online businesses, is the Small Business Administration, the SBA loans. They just take too long to get approved. Sellers don't really want to deal with that because they have so many other buyers that are more liquid. So this could be a good alternative if you are looking to buy a business through Microacquire, is checking out Capchase and seeing what they can offer you. So in conclusion, I think Microacquire is going to be great for the buy and sell community. I still think they have a few quirks to iron out with being more transparent about what vetting goes into their business. That's something that I was digging through. I couldn't really find it out exactly what you need to, when you go to sell your business, what details they ask for, what details you provide. So it's not really extremely transparent on what's going on, what sort of due diligence or vetting is going into these businesses. That would be extremely helpful. I think one other interesting thing that they should do is somehow find an integration for Google Analytics. So once you do find out more information about this, they could share the Google Analytics, or just sharing it totally, sharing that raw data or information in the platform, because they don't really have any of the traffic data, which is something that I always want to look at whenever you're acquiring a business. That's kind of where you can see behind the shell, seeing if there's any fishy things going on, if they're getting a lot of data from India or something. There's sometimes there might be something going on, but it helps you investigate a little bit further. So in addition to that, I think it's very interesting. Marketplace, they've raised a lot of money and they're getting a lot of people utilizing their marketplace. So it'll be very curious to see where it goes from here. And I'm going to be interested to learning more about potentially buying or selling on the Microacquire